Hello, my name is Deana Harris, and I'm 19 years old, and I'm originally from Austin, Texas. I'm a University of Houston student, and today I will be conducting interviews with my friends about African American history for my African American Studies class. And I feel very privileged to even get to do something like this, to get to interview people about history, like African American history, because I am mixed. I come from two backgrounds, Mexican and African American, and I feel like this assignment will truly help me better understand at least one side of my background, my roots, where I come from. And yeah, so yes, let's get on to the interviews.
Hi, my name is Amanda. I'm Nigerian, but I was raised in Houston, and I am 21 years old.
So, how do you define African American history, and what do you see as its central themes?
I would define African American history as beginning from the moment that they were brought over from Africa to the Americas and everything that they have been through, that we have been through and experienced since then, which includes our perseverance, our resilience, our creativity, our ingenuity, and essentially how America became home for us and how we became our own people, our own culture, our own nation. Some of its central themes for me include resilience, include creativity, include community, and include compassion for one another.
Great. Next, which African American events, movements, or individuals most reshaped American society? Why slash how?
One of the ones that come to mind most for me would be the Harlem Renaissance from like the early 1917 to like 1930 or so. And that really stands out to me, one, because it's an aspect of like African American history that's not just rooted in like trauma and pain, but rather in our creativity and what we were able to do. Like we had great poets of that time, great artists, great musicians, jazz, blues, all those type of things are really thriving among the Black community. So that's really special to me, and I think it's a good picture of who African Americans are.
Hi, I'm Kayla. I'm 22 and I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana.
Okay, great. So, Kayla, the questions I have for you.
Okay.
Which African American events, movements, or individuals most reshaped American society? Why slash how?
I said my individual was going to be Malcolm X because I feel like he pushed more of a more radical view of Black freedom. I think before we were very palatable. I think before we were very much like, let's just try to be hand in hand with other races, with white people. But I feel like Malcolm X was like, let's take our freedom and let's stop letting people push us around. And yeah.
Next question is, describe a moment when learning African American history changed the way you thought about race or justice.
I think the one event that made me rethink justice was the Tulsa massacre that happened in the 1920s. That there was a very wealthy Black community that was in Tulsa, and it got burned down by a white mob who was, accusing some young Black man of something that he didn't do, and it wound up leading to a white mob destroying the entire community. And I think it remade me think of like the freedom that Black people were trying to fight to have, because at one point we did actually have it. At one point we were actually building ourselves up like economically, and we weren't like the bottom of the barrel, and that unfortunately led to us, that unfortunately led to their demise. And I think that just makes me think that like justice has always been very complicated because we've never really had the space to have that freedom, because even when we do, it's destroyed at the end. So yeah.
Okay. And finally, How does African American history influence current social debates like education, voting
Yeah.
rights?
So for education, I'd say like the critical race theory has been something that a lot of people have been having a lot of controversial views on. They think it's like, in a way, it's trying to make people feel guilty about the past and make them feel like, oh, you're the reason that this happened. But it's just to educate people more about what Black people went through and how they can use their privilege to actually help minority communities instead of just being there. So I think learning more about what Black people went through, what they actually went through, not just like the watered down version, I think, that's,
Thank you so much, Kayla.
Hello, my name is Kirsten Ivory. I'm 22 years old, and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, great. So the questions I have for you today: what misconceptions or gaps exist in how this history is taught, like African American history?
I feel like, pardon my language, but I feel like it's whitewashed. Like it's down. The truth is not being told. Like I feel like in history you have things that are not fully told to its fullest extent, like how brutal things were actually, and how courageous African American history is. Like there were things that our people did that was monumentous. Like it was important and it shaped a lot of things. So, like those are, and it's not given enough credit as well. So, yeah.
What responsibilities do families, individuals, or institutions have in preserving and teaching African American history?
Repeat that question again.
What responsibilities do families, individuals, or institutions have in preserving and teaching African American history?
So when it comes to institutions, I feel like as an institution, if you're going to be teaching African American history to people that might not know, or that people that look like the people that were a part of it and that know little, I feel like it's, as an institution, it's your responsibility, your duty, and your due diligence to educate people properly. Tell them the truth. What actually happened? What really, and it's okay if it offends people, it makes people uncomfortable because it's history. It happened. You can't water down what happened to satisfy or make someone else's comfortable. Were my people comfortable when things were happening? You gotta like, come on, you can't like be so sensitive to other people. Things happen. Brutal things happen. We see it every day. What makes my people's history any less of that, you know? So.
And finally, what part of African American history deserves more attention today and why?
I feel like from the transatlantic trade to coming to the Americas, making it seem like, I honestly feel America is built on the backbone of Black people, of Africans, of Africans that were stolen from culture, land, and hell, even the culture and the land is being stolen from us today. Like, people just don't know it because they're not educated properly. It's kind of like, yeah, I would just say from pre to post to now, that matters. So, yes.
Thank you so much, Kirsten.
Thank you.
So for my interviewee, Kirsten, one of her points that definitely stood out to me was when she referred to history as whitewashed, because it directly aligns with Karinga's constant saying that we must change like the distortion found in African American studies, the misrepresentation, the omission, all the above. He states that one of the central tasks of discipline is the critical recovery and reconstruction of African American history and culture. And I definitely believe that's true, because I feel as if African American history has been more shifted to American history, so to say, especially in the US, because, well, we're all American in a sense. But in the book, when he talks about the concept of cultural grounding, that requires telling history from an African-centered perspective. rather than like a American Eurocentric one. And when she focused on the transatlantic slave trade and how African labor was one of the main parts of building America, that made me think of the exploitation that he talks about in the Holocaust of enslavement. And I believe that he says it exists to produce liberated knowledge, which is not knowledge that reassures or comforts like the dominant like race. So for example, white people, as Kirsten was saying. As for Kayla, her focus on Malcolm X, I believe, reflects in the book when he talks about Black radical tradition, that it's essential to understand African American political thought. Because, as she was saying, Malcolm X, like, I always thought that Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, they are very different. And Malcolm X is definitely more, he takes more of a radical approach than Martin Luther King. He's very calm, very like, I believe he tries to not play the system in a sense, but tries to flip it, if that, yeah, he tries to flip it in a way where he shows people that what they have been taught about African Americans is just absolutely not true. And that's my input. I also liked when she talked about the Tulsa Massacre because it connects to the book's talk about Black economics and their struggle for control in their community and how it really shows Black economic fragility, I believe, because there's so many cracks in the system that was built by destroyed by white Americans. It was destroyed by their need for control, because when we got our freedom, I feel like they felt like they had lost part of control, and that was something that I noticed. And her comments about critical race theory align with Karenga's argument that Black studies must analyze the systems that we have built. And I think that we need to take a deep look at institutional structures as well, because it matches Kayla's point about the CRT revealing the real experiences of Black Americans. And as for Amanda, her definition of African American history very much was a story of forced displacement. When she discussed the Harlem Renaissance as a transformative cultural movement, it connected to the book's idea of Black creative production, which was one of the core areas of discipline. And her reflection on the Black Lives Matter movement really connects to the book's discussion of modern Black political movements as well, which is particularly like the ongoing struggle of liberation, justice, social transformation that we even see to this day. One thing that really struck me was when she said that justice isn't automatic, but it must be actively pursued, because it mirrored what the book said about the struggle as like an African American. And the struggle is still something that we are fighting for to this day. Listening to these interviews today really changed the way that I look at African American history, you know, because before all I had was like some classes they taught in high school, you know, world history, the basic things, like things that my parents would have told me, because my dad's the one that's African American. And these interviews kind of, well, they did change my perspective on a lot of things. For example, Kirsten's way that she looks at things, like saying that the teaching is whitewashed. Most of me agrees with that in the latest sense, you know, because like cultural things really weren't that long ago. Like Rosa Parks she just died in the 2000s. Ruby Bridges is still alive. They really make us they make the photos look black and white, so we think it was a long time ago when really it really wasn't. It's really systematic, I think. And when Kayla was talking about the Tulsa massacre, like there are still people alive from that, still people who remember, who went through it, who really who unfortunately had to live through that. And the fact that they're barely teaching us about it is really tragic in a way. Something I also learned, or something that I got from it, was that like it helped me understand like the way people like to either remember or don't remember things. Like they pick and choose, and people's values are really different when it comes to learning African American history and choosing to act or not to act, and what their idea of like a community is. And I think that this project kind of influenced me to like think about the role that I have in keeping like African American history alive, like from both of my roots. How do I explain it? It kind of makes me think about how I can do more, especially as I learn more. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching this video.